Hello, welcome to It's a Frankly Hairy podcast. Welcome to the forest once again. I'm your host, Frank Weber. I'm so glad that you could be with me to talk about some deep and hopefully interesting, maybe semi-humorous topics. I wanted to start this week repeating a personal story that I tried to tell on my old podcast, Frank Weber's Party. That was kind of related to what I was talking about last week with Rick Mears and how he kind of slowed down and had maybe a little bit more focused and relaxed attitude on racing. When I was in first grade, I was really quite the speller and could do it fairly quickly. So we had kind of this quick spelling bee or timed spelling bee. And I was just out there having fun, writing the words on the board and winning the competition against the other students. As I said, I was very good about that in first grade, and our side of the class, I think it was, wound up winning because of, at the time, I didn't really have a lot of anxiety and didn't have a lot of cares in the world for that matter, and so we wound up winning pretty easily, and I was very happy about that. I think that, as minor of a story as that sounds, that is a good illustration of the point that he was making in auto racing. And I think that was also the same event from like early 1985 or so when I was up at the front and I took turns kissing these two girls. I can't remember exactly how that started, but one of them was blonde, one of them was brunette. And we took turns kissing each other on the lips. It was a lot of fun, and I think it's a very interesting story even now. But about a dozen or so years later, all three of us wound up at Texas Tech, and we were staying in dorms that had the same dining hall and commons area, and then we ate dinner together and stuff, and I tried to bring this story up and tell them that this really happened, and then they wound up denying it, and I don't think we were really friends after that. I don't know. It was a crazy thing, but it was a small example of that philosophy, just taking a relaxed and methodical approach to everything, winning the spelling bee anyway, not necessarily the kissing, but and then he also, Rick Mears in that interview with Dale Earnhardt Jr. also talked about that he was going to retire once the desire left him, and he did, from Roger Penske's team. And that's just, that's a life lesson when it comes to careers or individual jobs or even hobbies. I think things either grow old or stale, or your interests change over time, and you just wind up moving on. And I'm actually kind of going through a lot of that right now, because things have changed in life, and they actually get stale, and even if they seem like they're going really good for a while. He also mentioned, though, of course, there's a lot of athletes in a lot of sports who hang on way too long, and whether they have the desire or the success anymore is questionable. But that was another fine point to take from that interview. Today I want to talk mostly, though, about this thing about ingrained ideas. There's some people and groups out there who have been really, really conditioned to think one way or another, or it's just so deeply ingrained that they just can't see it any other way. And I'm going to give a couple of big examples, maybe even controversial examples. But now I have to say, depending on your values, ingrained things or certain conditioned things are not necessarily bad. I certainly don't want to judge anybody on anything. If you like something, it's been good for you, it's worked for you, it's hard to necessarily say don't continue to do it. but to be able to have a discussion with you and potentially enlighten you in a way that you may or may not change your mind and see the world in a new, completely different light. That's an area where things that are too hard and fast on beliefs can really get in the way of, as Jesus would say, live life to your full. Or what did he say exactly? It was, I came to bring you life and have it to the full, or something to that effect. So anyway, I just had a couple of topics on this, and I can't really go into a great deal of detail. I may at some point on this show, when it becomes really big and much longer and maybe even more frequent with guests and all the things that I'm dreaming about. But there are topics of conversation and beliefs and lifestyles that never really get talked about for some reason or another. One of the ones that I've been thinking about lately, if you know me, I have a pretty big science background from college and dental school, mostly biology or related subjects. And I also know a lot about the Bible and faith and religion, and particularly Christianity. And over the years, I've taken a real interest in a debate, although I don't know if you can really call it a debate, because people don't really talk about it too much. They either take one side or the other. But it's a conflict of creationism versus evolution. And like what I just said, what happens is people get taught one way or the other, and they believe it to be gospel truth, and then when they hear the other side present their story, they shut them down or shut them off, and they just don't want to hear it. And over the years, I've had evolving, pun intended, views on this subject, to where you essentially, I'm losing my train of thought. I'll get it back here in a second here. But you're talking about a couple of ideas that, quite frankly, as I've lived life, and I'm now 46, on my way to 47 years old, you have a couple of ideas that both have merit to them. Okay, honestly, they both have merit to them. They both probably exist at the same time, possibly in different realms, like evolution is in the natural world or naturalist world, while creation may very well be in a spiritual world. And the ideas themselves have a lot deeper meaning than a lot of the core values and the surface values that are often brought to light, such that they lead to a different value system and a different worldview, perhaps. Views that may, in fact, be parallel in a sense, but then they may also, for all we know, they may also be related. I would cite, just as an example, Joe Rogan says a lot of stuff on his show, about AI and UFOs existing in the spiritual realm and things like that. That somebody suggests that the Big Bang Theory in the Bible is the same thing as when God said, "Let there be light." That's just a suggestion there that he made. I'm not sure where he got that from, but the fact that we cut each other off, we don't want to hear new ideas or delve deeply into a subject or two subjects, is very disheartening, concerning, because there's so much more that we could really learn if we didn't automatically just go out and declare a winner ahead of time and say, well, this is the way it is, or no, this is the way it is. We have to get in there and fully discuss the subjects, and there is a ton ton of stuff on each one of those subjects about what they're really about. And like I said, I already talked about their relationships and everything. I looked at it a lot in college. You know, I had a professor at Texas Tech, Dr. Deeney, who I think is retired now. Great class. Learn a lot in that class. We'll learn to critically think in that class. I don't know how much of what he said or did was an act or anything, but he was very pro-evolution, which is fine considering the class that he was teaching. But then again, you know, a few years after I was out, somebody actually said, well, he's actually a devout Catholic. You know, he's very deeply religious and not an atheist as we originally thought. And that's just another deeply ingrained stereotypes and things that we get of the other side. We don't understand the whole picture because we don't really choose to discuss it, I guess is what you would say. The other thing that I want to talk about briefly, but also would love to talk more at length at a later time, is I have this interest in not naturalism. Naturalism, of course, related to evolution, but I have an interest in it because I just talked about it. But I have an interest in what is known as naturism, or we call it in the States nudism. And I read a couple of really good books about history and culture going back thousands of years in humankind. Very fascinating stuff about, you know, humans, like a lot of animals. Do we really need to always wear clothes or not? You know, especially when we're doing something recreational and being nude for the sake of being nude. Now, I've never been to a nudist resort or a nudist beach. It's something that I would like to do. But a lot of people are so ingrained because they have been, you know, ingrained to a certain way. Like if you go swimming, you have to wear a swimsuit. Do you really? I mean, because if you go to the beach in a swimsuit, you're going to get it wet, and it's going to probably have some sand in it, maybe some mud. It's going to have to be washed again. If you go in the nude, you just wash yourself. And actually, I thought of this. I thought of this thing the other day where, now that it's summertime and people are breaking out the swimsuits, that in terms of amount of fabric and coverage, swimsuits are basically the same as underwear. And like you go outside and walk around in your underwear, people tend to get embarrassed. But if they're at the beach or the pool in their swimsuit, they don't. And so what makes the difference there? The same thing when you go swimming. Do you really need a swimsuit? Or not? You know, I mean, it's kind of the same. It's a practical idea. They call that in the naturist world, they call the people who wear clothes textiles or textile world or textilists or whatever. But anyway, my view has kind of changed on that. It's something that I'm trying to, or I would like to do in the not too distant future, just to try it out, open a whole new world to me, maybe learn something, just as I learned something about these books, because human nature and human life really hasn't changed that much over the thousands of years. I don't even know why some humans moved into northern climates and decided to start wearing fur and animal skins, and those who didn't, you know, usually stayed fairly nude for a long time. Clothes were kind of a luxury for a long time, and then something changed after the time of Jesus and maybe the time of the church. It's weird that there's a body shaming, and yet we're made in the image of God, and that we fearfully and wonderfully made. We're his temple, and yet, well, you're not necessarily probably not going to do business or go to church or anything in the nude. There are these other recreational activities that are only recreational, where it makes sense. Gardening was another example that they give. I think there's a book, I can't remember what it was called, but Liz and James Egger, I think is their names, wrote it, and it was very fascinating, very eye-opening, very thorough. And that kind of helped me not only get some knowledge, but some excitement for maybe going out and doing this. The other big thing, though, too, a lot of people, from the sexual revolution, a lot of people seem to think that nudity equals sex, and that's part of the reason why Playboy magazine, despite seeming artsy and tasteful, is actually considered softcore porn, because they were equating nudity to sex, and that's not the case in a nudist situation. So anyway, I probably went on a little bit more than I should have there. I don't know if I explained myself very well, but, you know, when you have new ideas, try to be open-minded to them. You know, obviously the naturist or nudist world is not going to force you to do anything, but if you understand the idea behind things and everything is voluntary, you know, it opens a new world to you. A lot of learning, a lot of interesting facts, and you wonder why we're here right now in 2024, and our thinking is in some ways possibly, not necessarily always, but possibly at times kind of backwards and maybe even different from what God intended. So I'm looking at my counter now. I hope I'm not rambling on too much, and hopefully I made a good point with this. But anyway, just try to be open-minded, less ingrained, maybe even recondition yourselves willingly, just to see the new possibilities that are out there, because I think there's a ton of them, and as I get older, I feel like I have less and less time to do things or experience things, and that concerns me. Trying to live the best life I possibly can. So anyway, that's about all I have for today. I bet there's got to be some comments after this one. I don't know. I don't think a lot of people leave comments for some reason nowadays, but I hope you love the show. Please, as always, leave a comment, subscribe. Just tell your family and friends about me. This is a real work in progress. I'm kind of on an island, kind of lost, just trying to figure out how this is supposed to go on this and a lot of other things. But anyway, I thank you for joining me. I look forward to hearing from you and seeing you here again next week here in the forest. And until then, lots of love. I love you. Love you, fans. And this is Frank Weber saying bye. See you again soon.